Hello, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be talking about the Hawaiian language, or Olelo Hawaii. Hawaiian is a Polynesian language, specifically an oceanic language, that's spoken in the US state of Hawaii, which I think, given the name, you could have probably figured that out on your own. Now, there are many things that are interesting about Hawaii, from its history to its grammar to its phonology, but today we're going to be talking about the script that it's written in. Now, since Hawaii was conquered by mm, America and it had had extensive contact with the British before, I think it's pretty obvious that the script that they use to write their language is the Latin alphabet. But also, it's also quite obvious that the Latin alphabet is not particularly suited to represent Hawaiian, since Hawaiian has a lot of syllables, and the alphabet corresponds to sounds, not syllables. So it becomes a bit messy. I mean, just look at the name of Hawaii's state fish written in the Latin alphabet. It's obvious that the script is struggling quite a bit. Now, what script do I suggest that Hawaiian be written in instead? Well, Katakana. For those of you who don't know, katakana is a syllabary, meaning that each symbol represents a syllable in this writing system that is used to represent Japanese. Now, it might seem like a random choice at first, but Hawaii has had a very large population of East Asian Americans, including Japanese Americans. And in fact, their state food, musubi, is also an import from Japan. So I feel like this choice is actually pretty intuitive. Not to mention that Hawaiian and Japanese both have very similar syllable structures. In fact, Hawaiian syllable structure is actually a lot simpler than Japanese. So this will be a pretty easy fit. While saying that, though, it's obvious that they're still very different languages, so the fit won't be exact. Therefore, I've had to change some things so that katakana will be able to match Hawaiian. Firstly, these rows are the ones which remain the same. Basically, these symbols are similar enough to Hawaiian that I haven't had to change anything for it. So the vowel row remains the same, I, E, U, E, O, the basic five vowel system, and the N row and the M row remain the same, Na, Ni, Nu, Ne, No, Ma, Mi, Mu, Me, Mo. There's no changes needed for these sets of symbols. The first row, where there are some changes regarding the sound that the syllables make, is what in Japanese would have been the ka row, ka, ki, ke, ke, ko. But in Hawaiian, I realized that I needed something to represent the glottal stop, probably the most iconic sound in Hawaiian, so I used the ka row for this. This might seem a bit weird at first, but historically, ka became the glottal stop in Hawaiian, so it does make quite a bit of sense when you think. The next row where there was a change is the sa row. At least in Japanese, it's the sa row, except for the e syllable that makes a sh, but I don't have time to explain that right now. Thing is, Hawaiian is actually quite unique because it doesn't have a s sound, which is actually one of the most common sounds cross linguistically. So instead, I decided to use the sorrow to represent the hurrow, since I need the hurrow for something else down the line. Now, of course, you're probably wondering, since I used the karo to represent the glottal stop in Hawaiian, what would I use for the ka sound in Hawaiian, which it is present in, and I decided to use the taro. In Japanese, of course, that represents the T sound, except for the E and syllables, those are chi and tsu. Again, I don't have time to explain here. But in Hawaiian, ta is in free variation with ka in a lot of varieties, and in most varieties it has fully shifted to ka. So logically, I decided to use the taro to represent the ka sound in Hawaiian. Now we move back to the haro, and this time it's not based on historical Hawaiian linguistics, but historical Japanese linguistics. Hawaiian, like most languages on Earth, does have a distinct pa sound, and so does Japanese, but Japanese is very weird about it. You see, pa is present in modern day Japanese, but historically, most instances of the pa sound shifted to a different sound. Like, for example, at the beginning of syllables, it shifted to ha, which is where we get the modern Japanese haro. and ignore it shifted to fur there, but again, no time to explain. So I decided that since Hawaiian has the p sound and Japanese has a haro, but I've already used the Japanese saro to represent Hawaiian's h sound, why not use the Japanese haro to represent the Hawaiian p? And yes, I do know that Japanese has a diacritic to represent the p sound on the haro, but if I'm not going to use the base symbols, I really don't want to use the diacritics. So I decided that the haro was the best choice. Now, this is the easiest one to explain. In Japanese, there's a r sound, but no l sound, so they have an aro, but in Hawaiian, there's a l, but there's no r. So, of course, it's easy to just swap them over since these sounds are pretty similar and they're often mixed up by people who speak a language which has one but not the other. The last row to explain is the waro, and unfortunately, it's the most difficult one. You see, wa is a pretty weird sound cross-linguistically because firstly, a lot of languages don't even have it in the first place, but also it tends to not appear in certain syllables or in combination with certain vowels because those combinations are difficult. So let's look at those wa syllables that are actually present in Japanese. Now, wa and wei, there's nothing weird about them. They just exist as regular syllables in Japanese. The weird ones, though, are we and wo, because they do have historical characters, but they're incredibly rare in the modern language, and their characters correspondingly are not used that often. In fact, wo has just fully shifted to o, and then I forgot to write o as wo in the Hawaiian section, but whatever. And the character for Wu just straight up doesn't exist because that is pretty difficult to pronounce, so I guess Japanese speakers didn't really use Wu at all. But Hawaiian does have all of these syllables. And yes, Wu is a pretty rare syllable in Hawaiian, but it does exist, so I do need to represent it. Therefore, I use the historical characters that Japanese used for the waro alongside the traditional ones, which are common, wa and wei, but for the Wuro, I decided to borrow the character for you because Hawaiian doesn't have the y sound anyways, so it's not really going to be used anywhere else. Here's some Hawaiian to look at that's written in Katakana. Just some common words and phrases. And of course, for the memes, here's the state fish of Hawaii, the blunt pig snout triggerfish, or Humu Humu Nuku Nuku Uapua'a, written in Katakana. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will try to make more. But of course, I'm dealing with a lot of stuff right now, so I'm not sure how many I'll be able to make. So for now, just enjoy this one. See you guys next time, whenever that is.